We have no plans for this spring day except to cook some food, hang around the farmhouse, spend some time together. As a mother of 7, there is no shortage of things to do around this house. So join me today for some homemaking. Of course, the monotonous tasks, laundry, cleaning, dishes, cooking, but also some more creative things, baking, flower arranging. I hope this video will inspire you in your own home. Thank you to Kiwico for sponsoring today's video. Now this day actually starts the night before as I am preparing something for breakfast. I wanted to make sourdough buttermilk pancakes. I have a sourdough pancake recipe over on my blog, farmhouseonboone.com, where you just take fed sourdough starter and add a few other things. But I wanted to do buttermilk. I didn't want to feed my main starter with buttermilk. So I just took a small portion of my starter and then added flour and buttermilk. I have a whole grain bread flour from Azure Standard and let that sit overnight to make into pancakes the next day. In the morning, it's bubbly and sour. I add 3 eggs, some coconut oil, salt, honey, and baking soda. Now, I'm not really measuring because I didn't measure my starter, so I don't exactly know how many cups. It appears to be about 3 or 4. So I'm adding about what I would add for a double recipe of sourdough pancakes. I decided to actually turn these into waffles. I get asked about my waffle maker a lot. And to be completely honest, this is not anything special. Just one day I wanted a waffle maker and I went up to Walmart and got one. So this is not like the one I would recommend by any stretch. I know that there are some good high quality ones out there and I just haven't gone to purchase them yet. Although I think it'll be nice to have a nicer waffle maker that would make more at once. I've seen ones that make 4 square waffles at one time, so I'll eventually get one of those. Just for now, this one works just fine. We are going to head out for morning milk chores. Usually we do this around 8 a.m. and then again at 8 p.m. This is somewhat flexible. Sometimes if we have somewhere, well, we never really have anywhere to be at 8 p.m., but if we get home later, we can milk later. And then there have been times where we need to be somewhere at like 7 and we'll milk at 6. You don't have to do it 100% on the hour, but she does need to be milked twice a day, which yields for us a lot of milk, a lot of cream, plenty to be making all of our dairy products with, which I really, really enjoy. And I love having that fresh, constant source. It's my favorite thing that we've added to the farm. Talked about this a lot over on my Simple Farmhouse Life podcast, but to me, a dairy animal has been the least amount of work for the calories, the fat, and the protein yield hour for hour, minute for minute time invested. Now, we like to garden. I like having chickens, of course. That's another one that seems to be something that you need a constant fresh source of. But I feel like in a busy season of life, I would probably cut back on gardening and go more all in on dairy just because, yes, it's a constant time commitment, but the yield for the amount of time that you put in is really bigger than I expected. Whereas like other things like starting seedlings indoors, okay? We started seedlings indoors this year and they were in the basement, water twice a day. And then we finally hardened them off, brought them out to the garden, and we have these measly little tomato plants where I could have gone to the nursery and got a 6-pack of tomato plants. In fact, Luke did because some of them didn't even make it and they were half off. So it was like $3-4 for a 6-pack. The time investment there just doesn't compare to dairy, where I go out and I milk for 15 minutes. We have a very trained cow. She comes straight to the milk stand all by herself and get 3 gallons of milk a day. Now, of course, it's 2 times, so more like 30 minutes of active milk time a day. But then I get so much rich, sustaining food that just packs a big nutritional punch. So I love all of the aspects of homesteading, but I've been reflecting more and more on the dairy aspect, the yield for the time investment and all of the different products it replaces for us. I've learned how to make yogurt, cream cheese, sour cream, butter, cheese now, cream for the coffee. There's so many beautiful, rich, staple kitchen items that our sweet dairy cow provides for us, and we're so grateful for it. After milking, I am going to get some cheese going, get the kitchen cleaned, get Theodore down for his nap. Kids are just playing in the living room, in our room, everywhere, playing blocks, outside. I will be sending them all outside very shortly as I get this kitchen back in order. Usually in this morning time slot, I like to get some kitchen tasks done. So making cheese right now, and then I also usually like to get lunch going, so that way if it's something like a whole chicken, it has plenty of time to cook before lunch. If it's a meatloaf, it has plenty of time to cook. I really enjoy getting something in the oven that needs to cook for a while, so I don't have to really think about it, and I can throw in a load of laundry, tidy up. There are so many tasks that I need to do in the morning just to bring the place back to workable order. I want to take a break from my day to tell you about today's video sponsor, Kiwico. Kiwico is a monthly subscription box that has learning activities for all ages. I love that there is something for the youngest, Theodore, that he can actually do. This time it was adorable because he can actually figure out the little puzzle where you put the correct shapes. He did all of this with his panda crate. All the way up to my oldest, who is 14, she put together a speaker that has Bluetooth and it has lights. My kids get ridiculously excited whenever Kiwico comes, but also it teaches them something. They also have educational booklets that come with them, so if you want to sit down and dive deeper, they can learn the science behind what they did. Each crate has a lot of ways that you can dig deeper and do several different things, so it can last a really long time. With my kids, I really like it because we have several kids in several ages. And even though they're tailored for each specific age, the older kids like doing them with the younger kids. I have a couple of middle boys, they like doing them together, so then they work together and then they each get 2 crates to work on. So we try to spread it out a little bit so it's not all in one day, and do that, like set them up in pairs, keep them busy on one thing for a day and then on another thing. We try to make sure that they get out of each crate all that it has to offer because there's a lot in each one. Kiwico provides a monthly crate delivered right to your door with fun hands-on projects that are designed by experts and tested by kids. They have 9 different lines, so there's something for every age. If you just want a single crate or you're not ready to subscribe, Kiwico now also offers a variety of individual crates at the Kiwico store. Hours of fun, great for kids this summer to reduce screen time, get them on a project that they can use their brains and their creativity and their problem-solving skills. Kiwico is offering Farmhouse on Boone viewers 50% off your first month by using my link, kiwico.com/farmhouseyt. It'll also be linked in the description box below. Use the code FARMHOUSE to get 50% off your first month. If you notice these fancy sliding shots, that's because one of my children has become very interested in filmmaking and now has a slider that she is working with. She created videos for a business in town. She's trying to build up her portfolio and she wanted to test out her slider before heading in to do that. I am getting some bread going. I'm making a whole wheat loaf with buttermilk. So a whole wheat buttermilk sourdough loaf. I've made this now a few times on here. I'm being pretty careful with the measurements because I'm wanting to continue to improve it and then also share with you all. Now it turns out that it's just like my whole wheat sourdough sandwich loaf, which is a brand new recipe over on the blog. But when I do the buttermilk, I do a little bit less flour. So if it's 4 cups of flour in the loaf, which it is, it's 3.5 cups that I do with the buttermilk. Now I am getting my rennet going to go in the cheese. I know I've shared about cheese a lot on here. We are getting to a more manageable spot with the milk because we did dry off one of our cows. And so I think I'm gonna be making cheese once a week going forward. Up till now, I've felt like we were kind of drowning in it. I also wanted to build up this big stockpile so that it has time to age. Right now, we're still waiting. We have cracked into one of the wheels of cheese that was a 4-week aging cheese, and it definitely tasted pretty mild. So I really would like a lot of it to age more. So I feel like if I get way ahead on the cheese making, then it just by necessity will age because it's going to be sitting in the fridge because we won't get to it. The boys a lot of times mid-morning do ask for a snack. Sometimes I say no, lunch is going, and sometimes I get it for them. They love yogurt. They almost always ask me for yogurt, and so I did some of my Greek yogurt that I strained and added some milk back in to make it more mild with maple syrup. Now I wanted to show you here with the bread what it looks like when it has passed the window pane test. I get asked about this a lot, and I think a lot of people, including, I was talking to my mom recently and she was asking one of the reasons her bread wasn't rising quite as much, and I think it's not kneading enough. So you want the dough to be really smooth, really glossy, and depending on your mixer, it can take a really long time to get there. So I just let mine keep going. Sometimes it'll go for 20 minutes. I know that's against all the manufacturer instructions over on like the KitchenAid website, but until it gets to that really smooth spot, I don't like to stop the kneading, and I end up having really good results that way. I have a particular daughter who likes to bake or make something dessert related often, and I just let her. I feel that the ingredients are very high quality. There is a pudding recipe she likes to make that has 12 egg yolks in it, a lot of milk, all from our farm, and so I let her have at it if she wants to do that. Usually there is another big cleanup session before we even get to lunchtime. Today I am boiling my cheesecloths. I don't know if this is the best method or not. If you're a cheesemaker, you're probably like, boiling? That's not the way we do this. I don't know. I do know that when making cheese, there is a contamination that can happen, and it apparently, I'm in a couple cheese groups over on Facebook that I've been living in lately because I'm trying to learn all that I can about cheese, but it's apparently pretty common to get this contamination to happen. You have to be careful with all of your cheese making supplies. If anything has, I think it's a yeast that can infect the cheese. And since we do so much baking, I'm trying to be really careful because I don't want to cut into one of my cheeses and see these big glossy holes. Apparently, if you see that, it means that the cheese is contaminated, and it can happen relatively easily because it looks in the groups like it happens all the time. So I'm just trying to be really careful, avoiding any bacteria as much as possible so that we don't have that happen. We did eat a bunch of our first cheese raw, and we all lived to tell the tale. It's been probably been about a week since then. So I guess there was no contamination in our first batch, and I think I pretty well know what to look for. So I'm not super nervous about it, but I am trying to take every precaution while making the cheese to avoid problems. Now today we are making our fried chicken. Again, I'm pretty sure we made this recently. We just can't get enough of it. And if you follow along with me for any amount of time, you know that I get stuck on things where something sounds good, it works, I'm in the habit of it, and I just make it over and over again, then I switch and forget it existed. I do this all the time. Well, what I'm into right now is frying things in the lard from my sister's farm. So I take chicken breasts, which are also from her farm, dip them in egg, dip them in my homemade sourdough breadcrumbs, fry them in lard, fry potatoes, and then I'm also going to be making a honey mustard dressing with homemade mayo. This is our favorite homemade dressing because it tastes probably the most like a dressing you'd expect from the store. Not that that's the end all be all of what makes something good, but it's very recognizable. It's just really good. That's all I can say about it. So to make the mayo, I just do an egg, some mustard, some vinegar, and salt in a mason jar, add a cup of oil on top. I am setting some of the mayo aside because I feel that it would be very delicious to dip fries in, and spoiler alert, I'm right, it's so good. Then I add mustard and honey. I do about equal parts, I would say, ish, of mayo and honey, and then a smaller amount of mustard. If you have a lemon, squeezing lemon juice into it makes it even better. And then maybe a little additional salt, just depends on how much salt you added into your mayo. You can, of course, take a little spoonful and see. It dresses spring greens in a very lovely way. If you have sourdough croutons or hard-boiled eggs or some chicken, it can be its own meal. Very satisfying, very filling. Just again, I get these things that I know exactly what I'm doing, so I don't have to revisit a recipe, that I can just crank out over and over without thinking. And currently honey mustard is that thing. It also makes a really good dipping sauce for chicken or any other thing that you normally dip in honey mustard. It's very delicious. After frying anything, I usually just pour it right back into the jar, but today I decided to strain it. I didn't do it with the chicken frying oil, just the potato frying oil, and then save it for another time. Now I also need to get kefir grains strained off. I've given away a lot of kefir grains lately, and so my stash is quite low, so I've been making a quart at a time. Now they grow as they sit in milk, especially raw milk. They seem to really thrive, so I'll have them built back up. I actually have not purchased kefir grains in probably a decade now. Is that right? I think that's right. I need to go back, and I don't think there's any way for me to actually figure that out. Pretty positive I haven't purchased any in a decade. I originally purchased some live kefir grains on eBay a long time ago, and they just continue to grow. So I give them out to friends. I make batch after batch. You set it in some milk, allow it to ferment for a while. Sometimes I do 24 hours, sometimes I do 3, 4, 5 days. I know that to some of you, it's probably like, wait, why you leave milk on the counter that long? But yes, I do, and it just gets sour, but it doesn't get bad, and it's very healthy for your gut because it has a lot of probiotics. I also took a little time to strain off cream. I try to do this pretty regularly so that I can easily reach in, grab cream to make butter, sour cream, cream cheese, ice cream. It's nice because the longer that the cream sits on the milk, it gets really thick. It pools sort of around the edges of the jar, and it's hard to get all of the cream off. Now, if that happens, I can shake up the jar and then remove the cream after it settles again. But I like to get it pretty quickly. Now I'm gonna give a little attention to my hard working stove. I have to clean this thing very regularly, but thankfully it is quite easy to clean and to shine up. And then a little bit of afternoon laundry, getting one more loaf of bread going for tomorrow's bread, feeding the sourdough starter, and then my afternoon work time. This is something that we structure in our day so that I can answer emails, plan content, communicate with my team. Part of our lives as a work from home family, which involves creating content, means that there has to be a little bit of time carved out each week to address these things. I also have a podcast. So on those days, I go out to our cottage because it's nice and quiet, and I set up my mic and I chat with somebody for an hour. It's an ever-changing business based on what kind of projects I'm working on. If I'm launching a course or writing a book or focusing on a new social media platform, I get asked about this a lot in my course groups because I do educate students on how to make their own blogs and YouTube channels. And I talk about how I did each thing one at a time. So I wasn't trying to build YouTube and build the blog and build Instagram all at the same time. So I will focus hard into one thing until it can sit on the back burner. And of course that still requires effort, or it requires hiring somebody to help me with it. But my mental focus does have to go into something to get the ball rolling. Now for today's project, I am working on photographing a chocolate chip cookie recipe over on my blog. Now I've had a sourdough chocolate chip cookie recipe for a while, but the photos need to be redone. This is a constant thing with blogging. You want to take content that you have and constantly improve it as maybe you learn something new, or there are different suggestions, or you get better at photography. I have a collection of recipes and articles, and I make new ones, but I also really like to go back to the old ones and improve them. And so that is what is on today's task list. Now I have every day a list in my phone that whenever I do get a little bit of work time in the afternoon, I know exactly what I need to do. And today's project, as small as it may seem, that's the thing about all of this with business, is each day what you do with it isn't that big of a deal. Like today I photographed cookies, but it really adds up whenever there is that consistency and intention behind it. I always have a list. I know what I need to get done. I check it off the list, then I can move on with all of the evening tasks as a family of 9. So that's just a little tip. If you are trying to build some kind of online business, whether you're trying to grow as a social media influencer on Instagram, or a YouTuber, or a blogger, or your email list, or whatever it may be, what you do each day might make you second guess yourself because it really does sometimes feel very insignificant. I don't feel like anything that I've done for my businesses over the years at any point has been this big significant thing. It's just each day I have like, okay, today I need to voice over a video, which is what I happen to be doing on today's work day when I'm talking to you guys right here. And that's all I'm going to get time for today in this day. But tomorrow there'll be something else, and then it'll just add up, and over time it really becomes something larger. If you want to make sourdough cookies of any kind, head over to farmhouseonboone.com and search cookies. I have sourdough peanut butter cookies, shortbread cookies, chocolate chip, sugar cookies. I'm trying to think of all the ones. I believe there's even a post where there are several cookie recipes in one. I've learned that the best way to ferment them is to make the dough or the batter and then put it in the refrigerator for several days. So I got these in the fridge, and then I'm just going to put some pictures here of how they turned out. So delicious. It's pursuits like this, learning to bake something new and also creating beauty, that makes me enjoy homemaking most. Of course, laundry systems and meal planning, all very important, all something that we have to learn and get better at. But I love to create moments where I can make beauty in our home. This year, our David Austin roses that we planted a year ago are blooming all over the place. I wish I would have planted 20 bare roots right now because of how beautiful they are. And I'm just enjoying the few plants that we did put in and arranging them. I'm going to add a little bit of yarrow in for some white color as well as honeysuckle. So we have a rose, yarrow, honeysuckle arrangement in an ironstone pitcher. If that doesn't brighten my day and create some beauty in my homemaking, I don't know what will. For dinner tonight, we are doing leftovers. We eat a lot of leftovers in this house. Anytime I make something and there's just a little bit left, we will put several different random things in the oven in glass dishes and warm them up, and then it's kind of a smorgasbord. Today I believe we have some chicken and some pasta. I was doing a podcast episode the other day with Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, so be on the lookout for that because I don't think it's out just yet. And we talked about that. Like, what do you do when you have half of a burger and a couple slices of bread and just a bunch of random stuff? And she had some creative ideas because zero food waste is important to both of us. And so we talked about that. We talked about babies and birth and all kinds of stuff. So if you like Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, make sure to head over to my Simple Farmhouse Life podcast channel, subscribe, and be on the lookout for that. It is evening now, so I have a few little cheese tasks to do before milking time. One is I've had this wheel of cheese sitting in the pantry for a couple of days to dry out. That's one of the steps of cheese making. And now I need to vacuum seal it so that it can age in the refrigerator. So I will vacuum seal it, label it, put it in my cheese fridge. And then I have another batch of cheese that's coming out of the brine, and it will now sit for a few days in the pantry before being vacuum sealed. I have a few evening supplements that I try to take every night during pregnancy. One is magnesium. That really helps with the leg cramps. Now, I know taking iron is quite controversial. I've read in a lot of pro-metabolic groups about how you should heal your iron deficiency in other ways. And although I know and I'm sure that is so true, I feel like I'm too far behind it, and things happen to me whenever I don't have enough iron. I end up craving ice, and then if I take iron, I don't. And so I just am gonna have to do that for the remainder of pregnancy. I don't really at the moment have time to look into all the things I should probably do to improve my iron. I know one of the things is to increase copper because that increases absorption of iron. And so I do take bee pollen in my smoothies. I forgot today. But that's a good idea to do. But I do take beef liver and then also some additional iron. We got the children in bed. We did evening milking. I'm just gonna strain off the milk before putting it in the fridge. I have a loaf of bread to throw in the oven, some cheese to throw into the brine that I took the other cheese out of earlier, and then it's time to put my feet up. I hope that you enjoyed going along with me for my day as a busy homestead mom of 7. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to my channel, Please hit that subscribe. I make a new video every week on food from scratch, natural living, and a handmade home.